So I want to start off with something that's going viral, and I'm really happy you're on today because I think you've spoken about this you've articulated it so well in the past. But there is a clip from MSNBC. I'm going to play it real quick, so give me 1 second.
I am totally undecided. I'd write your name in at this point.
Usually by now I would have voted already, but I'm just not comfortable with either one of them right now.
What are you looking for? What do you need to hear?
Let's start at the crime bill and the fact that he has not only not apologized, not only
Joe
not
Biden.
he is not only not rectified. Every time he reverts back to, well, it was the Black Caucus members in the church, but they were with it too. Okay, you fooled them as well. You know, you never said I'm sorry. You know, it's like I didn't do it.
I want to hear an ironclad plan. I don't want to hear if this or if that or after the election.
Does the presence of Kamala Harris on the Democratic ticket sway you at all?
Not at all. I don't know who said she had our vote. She does not. We were supposed to grab onto Kamala with the black girl magic, but that didn't happen because she didn't right her wrongs. Like, I hold officials accountable. I don't care what color you are. And I think that too often we automatically think that because someone looks like you, that they're going to have your best interests at heart. And that's just not simply true.
All right. So this is making the rounds right now. And on one hand, you know, I'm actually quite surprised MSNBC had the segment. And makes me think that maybe they're a little bit more concerned about voter turnout than they would admit. What's your take on this, Malika?
I think it's unfortunate that this is something that they're catching on to less than 2 weeks before the election. If you just looked at voter turnout records from 2016, just 2 weeks after the election, the census puts out a voter supplement every year. And that was the supplement that actually led me to go to the Midwest, which is where I've done a lot of my reporting on the Black electorate. And based on that data, you could see that there has been an increase in Black voters who decide not to vote because they do not like the candidates. And if you're not giving people anything that's related to their material needs, if you are focusing little on that and focusing on being an anti-Trump vote, you're going to have some problems. And I'll kind of hedge that by saying, I do think that we're going to have increased turnout amongst some demographics. I think you might find among most demographics of African Americans throughout the regions, the South, Midwest, the West, and the Northeast, I think there is going to be an increase. But what happens is that the Black vote gets to be turned into a monolith. So when we had this turnout for Joe Biden and Black voters in substantially Black states, when there was an increase in turnout for him, for instance, in South Carolina, that became a story about the Black electorate in general. And you had people like me cautioning, as I often did in The Guardian, that this is not representative of everybody. So while I do think that Joe Biden is actually going to win, I think he's going to win amongst Black people who vote. I think you are going to have a lot of people who stay home like we did in 2016.
So just comparatively, and I'm really happy that you started to speak out about this because it was so missing from the conversation. And some folks, I mean, there are folks, historians in particular, pollsters even, who started to talk about the working class not showing up, and it immediately it became the white working class, missing the fact that really everybody who was working class of all demos did not show up in the numbers needed. But in states like Wisconsin, for instance, where notably Hillary Clinton did not set up offices, she had no real real program there. She didn't go to Wisconsin. But also there's it's extremely segregated. It's the most segregated state in the country. And there's a tremendous amount of voter suppression there because of Republicans and Koch brother funding. So, you know, with that being said, in this election where it seems like they're putting a little bit more energy into energizing votes in the Rust Belt, I mean, at least by appearance and like having an office, maybe, do you think that they've amended enough to make sure that folks who usually turn out that are working class turn out?
I think it's going to be hard to say because this is not a Biden performance election. This is an anti-Trump election. And so whatever the Democratic Party has done or hasn't done, I think is less important than what Donald Trump has done and hasn't done. And a lot of African Americans are aware of that. So they're coming out, for instance, in Georgia, it had like the highest early voter turnout in its recorded history. So I think you're going to see a lot of anti-Trump votes. Where I do think it's going to matter is come the midterms. It's going to happen when whoever the president is going to be. I think the Democratic turnout is going to reflect the attitudes of how Black voters in the Midwest feel about the Democratic Party. I think it's too early to say right now how that's going to play out or how feelings about Joe Biden play out, because so much of it is not really about him. If you look at the statistics in terms of voter enthusiasm, it's less than it was for Hillary Clinton. So I don't think it's about enthusiasm for him at all. It is, I talked to my mom, and I'm from Atlanta, and that clip was shown in Atlanta, and folks in Georgia, Black people all over the country are just pissed at Donald Trump.
So these voters in particular that were watching, I mean, who do they represent? Are these like, there was a lot of stuff that was missing from that clip that I would love to know. Like, do they normally vote? Who do they vote for? Are they Democrats? Are they, I assume so, but how do you speak to voters like that? What does Joe Biden need to do? Maybe not now to election day, but afterwards, to make sure that we keep what are young voters. I mean, all of those women were young, engaged in politics and the Democratic Party now that Trump's out, hopefully out.
I think you have to look at what was engaging them before. And so during the Democratic primary, it wasn't a Kamala Harris, as they mentioned. It wasn't Kamala Harris that were actually bringing out Black, younger female voters. If you look at even an Essence poll, and Essence does not represent a radical, left-wing media outlet. It's pretty mainstream, and it appeals to middle-class women. But the number one choice that they chose in polling that Essence did was undecided. So most of them didn't know who they were going to vote for. The second was Bernie Sanders, and I think Joe Biden came in third. So amazing. From that clip, you see that you have younger Black women and younger Black men. There is a generational divide there. And the things that Bernie Sanders was talking about were the things that affect their material conditions. I know anecdotally, a lot of younger progressive Black women who are also supporting Elizabeth Warren. And so I think you have to look at what were they talking about? Canceling student loan debt. Black women in particular, they have the highest student loan debt burden. I have not heard Joe Biden really talk about that publicly. I believe he has it in his plan. He's talking about these huge unemployment and things that he's going to provide and be the next FDR, but then he's kind of talking on both sides of his mouth, because then he has an associate who's reporting that, well, Donald Trump with his tax cuts, they eliminated any ability for us to actually pay for these services that we're talking about. So I think he has to convince people he's going to pay for this and that he's committed to it. And he has not shown that yet.
Thanks for watching and listening to The Nomiki Show. But remember to click like and subscribe on YouTube, and please share on social media. If you're not already a patron, please join us for as low as $5 a month on patreon.com/The Nomiki Show for early and special content. That investment makes a huge difference. We are not corporate media raking in the dough. It's really you guys that are keeping us going. So please consider being a patron. And to our current patrons, thank you so much. We are incredibly grateful to you. We also now have swag. So check us out on thenomikishow.com to get your mugs, your totes, and your stickers.